So I've had the Meta Quest 3 for just over 6 months, and well, I have some thoughts. Let's start off with what is great about it. It's marginally heavier than the Quest 2, it's 515 grams, and the Quest 2 is 503 grams, but in real world usage, it doesn't make a difference. However, the fact that the Quest 3 is slimmer makes a massive difference, with that weight being transferred further back into the headset, making it feel way less front heavy. The base Quest 3 comes with 128GB of storage, and honestly, that's more than enough for most people. I'm able to have 5 relatively big games on there, as well as screen recording many gaming sessions, and I'm yet to run out of storage, and when I get kind of close to storage being low, I just delete some screen recordings. The resolution on the Quest 3 takes a big dump on the Quest 2. The resolution on the Quest 3 is about 10% better per eye, and they both have a 90Hz refresh rate. However, in real world usage, the Quest 3 does look a lot better. And talking about the image quality, the Quest 3 uses pancake lenses, meaning that there's far less warping around the edge of the image, and the focal plane is far larger, meaning that you're not straining your eyes for a sweet spot in the middle of the screen. You have a much larger range of the internal screen in focus, and trust me, it's noticeable. Also, the dynamic range and fidelity is far superior on the Quest 3. Games just look better. Now, in terms of the processing power, both the Quest 2 and Quest 3 use the Snapdragon XR2 processor, however the Quest 3 uses the Gen 2, which is marginally faster. However, what makes more of a difference is the Quest 2 has 6GB of RAM, whereas the Quest 3 has 8GB of RAM, and this is definitely noticeable in more labor intensive games. I've noticed on the Quest 2 sometimes there's marginal dropout in certain games where the headset has to render in something, or it takes a little bit longer to actually load into a game. Next, let's talk about the sound quality. It's insanely good. I'm not sure what magic they're doing, but these little speakers on the side of the headset sound great. With the left and right panning in games like Population 1, it feels extremely realistic. And of course, you can also plug in some headphones if you want, but I personally find this a little bit disorientating. Now let's talk about the battery life. They both have 2 to 3 hours of battery life. However, I've never been able to get 3 hours of battery life, which brings me on to the downsides. Now the downsides of the Quest 3 are interesting. Let's start with the battery. On average, I get between 1 hour 45 minutes and 2 hours 10 minutes of gameplay. However, if you're casting to a TV or your phone or screen recording at the same time, expect this to be dramatically reduced. As a YouTuber utilizing the Quest 3 to get content, it's simply not good enough. However, it might be okay for more casual players playing games that don't use any augmented reality. And talking about augmented reality, let's talk about pass-through mode. Now, on this video, it looks great. However, it doesn't look this good in real life because Meta uses a denoising algorithm on the recorded file. Don't get me wrong, it looks fine, but mixed reality isn't really good enough yet unless you're dealing with an extremely well lit room. I think at this price point it's usable, but it's not perfect. However, it's significantly better than the black and white pass-through mode on the Quest 2. I've barely used mixed reality as this is way better as a VR headset than an augmented reality headset. Now let's talk about games. There is a lot, but personally the only games I've really enjoyed and got engrossed with are the Peaky Blinders VR game and Population 1. A lot of other games feel a little bit like a novelty at this point. They're enjoyable for half an hour and then you kind of delete it or forget about it. I got 3 hands. But of course, this all depends on your taste and what you're interested in. Luckily, you can get a refund within 14 days if you've barely played a game and decide you don't enjoy it. Next, we need to talk about the heat. This thing kicks out so much heat. If you've been playing this for around 30 minutes to maybe an hour, you can feel the heat emanating from the front of the headset, and that heat is blasted directly onto your head. Sometimes I've had to take the headset off purely because I feel like I'm building up a sweat despite being sat down playing a game. I feel like some of the motion sickness that I get from VR headsets doesn't necessarily come from the actual movement of the game, but more the fact that I'm in a very claustrophobic environment with something very warm on the front of my head. This being said, it doesn't get hot, but it definitely gets warm enough to make you feel uncomfortable. Next, let's talk about the hand tracking. It's great, but it does feel a little unnatural, and in low light it barely works at all. However, you can always use the controllers, which are far more ergonomic than the Quest 2 controllers, and they do feel great to use. Hand tracking is great if you're deciding to watch a film, but the battery on this headset doesn't last as long as most movies. So to conclude this video, if you have a Meta Quest 2, I probably wouldn't recommend getting the Meta Quest 3 unless you spend a lot of time on it. If you're looking to get into VR for the first time and you want something that feels really advanced, definitely get the Meta Quest 3. Also, with Apple now releasing their own augmented reality headset at a ridiculous price point, if you want a gateway into this side of gaming and this side of VR and AR, the Meta Quest 3 is at a perfect price point and it's easy to use. So I would recommend it. Thank you all for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all in the next one.